the owners came into our Brewster location and said, hey, a Cottage Street Bakery is not going to open there in the summer. Do you want the space? That they did that over like right before Memorial Day weekend. Manuel and I were actually in California with our family at a friend's wedding, and we got a call from the manager like they really
Memorial Day weekend
Memorial Day weekend of
for
2018
that summer.
for that summer.
Hi, and welcome back to Chatham Coffee Tour. Today, I have my guest, Shayna Ferullo. Shayna is one of the owners of the Snowy Owl, which, as most people know, is one of the best coffee shops on Cape Cod. We just love it. They have a Chatham location. They have a Brewster location. Sandwich is the other one. Yeah. So, welcome, Shayna. So glad to have you here.
Thank you, Barb. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we were just
getting to know you.
Yeah, we were just catching up a little bit and finding out we both have middle school children and going through all the growing pains of that and running a business and, all of the hardships and the glory of living and working on Cape Cod. So I love having you here and anxious to hear about your journey. You started to tell me a little bit about how you got here, but why don't you kick it off with how you got to the Cape?
Yeah, sure. So I was your stereotypical summer kid. I grew up in Northborough, Massachusetts, which is a great place to grow up. I grew up next to Tugas Farm. We were friends with the Tugas family, and my first job was working at the apple place there, and they do apples and strawberries, and don't need to talk about them too much, but just to say it was like it was a great hometown, a great place to grow up. My parents had purchased a piece of land in Brewster because my mom graduated from Nauset. She lived in Brewster for the final years of her high school. My grandparents were still here, so we would come down here. We always rented a place in the summer, and when I was about 7, that piece of property that they had purchased became the spot for their home. So they built a home, a small little ranch in 1988. I don't even want to imagine how much it cost. I know it was under $100,000 to build that house. And I think they got the land for like 6,000 or something like that because
Wow.
different times. But then we were able to spend our summers here. My mom didn't work in the summer and was able to take us here. So I had all my first jobs, besides Tugas Farm, I had all my other first jobs here on the Cape. I used to work at Kate's in Brewster, Liam's. I worked at Katie's Clam Bar in Orleans. I definitely did the restaurant thing for many years. Abba was like the last restaurant I worked at.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
There, yeah, that was I still crave his pad thai. The shrimp and scallop pad thai that he would make was so good.
So that was great experience for you too, I'm sure, that came back in the future. Just working on the Cape and like understanding sort of the traffic in the summer and the busy days that are nuts when it's raining and then the days, that go a little slower. So
totally. Yeah. Seasonality and shifts, both, like you said, in terms of the seasons, but also from the weather. Like certain businesses are really weather. Our Chatham espresso bar is pretty weather dependent, right? If it's pouring rain, they're not going to be walking Main Street, but they're going to come to the places like Brewster and Sandwich where they can park and go inside and sit, right? So yeah, there's a lot of fluctuations, both in terms of seasonality and weather.
It's true. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. So then my husband and I met in San Francisco. I was out there working a really cool job that kind of changed during that first recession, the 2008 recession. But I was doing international economic consulting. So traveling all over the world. That was really fun. And just understanding kind of, international development. I was working in the tourism sector, but I was always interested in trade, and my husband, Manuel, had founded a company importing Peruvian pisco. He's from Peru. So that was always like really fascinating to me, how you get a product from one country into this country and all that has to happen for that for that to work.
So
So
when you traveled, take me back to when you did all that international travel and business trade. So what exactly did you do? You said hospitality kind of focused,
yeah,
or?
so we were a group of economists, and
Mhm.
what we would do is there were different sectors of the company. It was a really cool company that was born out of Disneyland, actually. There were 7 offices in seven parts of the globe, but we were only a company of 120 economists.
Wow.
And I worked a lot on the hospitality side. So what we would get brought in by a developer, let's say Malaysia. I had a project in Malaysia. We would get brought in, we would go to Malaysia and we would study the hospitality scene there and basically come up with like what we figured would be economically feasible. How many hotel rooms, how many, villas and resorts, what were the price points that they could get, what could they expect in terms of seasonality, what was the profile of the traveler. So Malaysia, they had a lot of travelers from the Emiratis, a lot of the Arab countries vacationed in that part. So basically profiling who their target
Mhm.
demographic would be. And a lot of they knew a lot of this already, but we would get really deep, like looking, looking at the average income, how much they spend. Do they spend eating out? Do they cook at home? Do they travel with a chef? What? So it was really, really fun. I mean, so we'd write up these big reports in the end and then basically say like, yes, pull the trigger. Or in a few cases, we would say, no, this is not a viable project, or at least how the developer was conceiving it was not a viable project. And we did that for cities. Like we worked a lot with the city of San Francisco. The state of California had this amazing redevelopment agency that gave money towards taking old derelict buildings and turning them into economically feasible places. So, for example, the Ferry building in San Francisco, I'm not sure if you're
Mhm.
familiar
Yes.
with downtown San Francisco, has the Embarcadero, where that Ferry building used to be this old derelict, crime-ridden, and they helped consult on the project to transform that into what it is today, which is like a thriving market
Oh,
of
it's so busy. I was there a few years ago. Yeah.
so those types of projects were also, they weren't international, but so interesting to me. And then we did like fiscal impact reports, economic impact reports, kind of more like boring crunching numbers, but I like numbers, so it
Well,
was a
I
great
like that
job.
too. I like that too, and I understand that. Yeah, my daughter does revenue management for hotels, so she's and she does works for a database company. So it almost seems as though you were like collecting the data, and now they take this company and they take all the data and they do rates, set rates, and adjust all that. So I understand that world a little bit too. It's kind of neat. So
Yeah, and it's a match of numbers, but then also like profiling people and
yes.
understanding people, right? And then understanding how like trends are shifting patterns and behaviors. So it was really fun. And then 2007, 2008 rolled around and we got swallowed. The principles of the company sold, and that changed everything. Everything changed at that point, right? That was a big deal.
Yes, that
The
was a
recession and financial
not
crisis.
great for real estate. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, so that was my background. And from there, I pivoted and did a lot of, I worked for a nonprofit in San Francisco that supported international students that were coming to the US. And then we sent students abroad as well. And so just like helping them get into their schools, finding host families, and managing kind of expectations and managing their programs. So I was always doing, and I did a lot of travel for that as well, mostly to China, Germany, South Korea. So travel, love to travel. I was able
Hey,
to find a career that took me places. That was the goal.
it's a little harder now, I'm guessing, although there is winter, but to do a lot of travel when you have a couple, three, right? Thriving businesses, like 3 locations on the Cape. I mean, that's hard even to travel to get to them in the summertime.
Totally. Taking left-hand turns has never been so difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. And obviously having a family, you need to have a little bit more of a home base, but I'm still able to sneak away. Last year, I got to travel with one of our coffee importers down to Guatemala, which was amazing. I had
Yeah.
always wanted to go there. I had been to some other Central and South American countries, but that was up on my list and that was amazing. And we traveled to, I mean, it's been a while, but we try to get to Peru, which is where my husband's from, where we buy a lot of coffee from. We have a lot of Peruvian influence in various aspects of our business. So yeah, it's not as frequent, but that's okay. I think as you get older, you're happier with less.
Yeah, I understand. I try to get away too if I can, but what I thought always was interesting is the schools with sports have changed. I mean, you haven't gotten your kids to high school yet, but the high schools are somewhat strict in the last few years. It's, to going away on vacation. And I always feel like this is Cape Cod where all of our kids, as soon as they can, will be working all summer long. Most parents are in an industry that is dependent on working in the season.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we need to be able to take our kids away at holiday vacations in February and April and Christmas, so we can actually offer them some travel, even if they're missing a game or two. And I know not everybody agrees with me. I'm a big fan of sports, but I think it's so important because we are committed to our season here.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I feel I love sports. I love
Mhm.
sports. However, I think the club sport thing has gotten out of control. I think it's a giant money grab. I don't know if you caught that article in the Wall Street Journal a couple months ago. It just really stuck with me. That was just like the biggest winner of club sports is Dick's Sporting Goods. And it went through, like, it was in the Wall Street Journal. So it went through, obviously, numbers wise, like how the average cost of like joining a club team and what you spend in equipment, which you're usually spending at Dick's Sporting Goods. And I don't know what the end goal is anymore. I mean, I know like when I was growing up, like maybe it was going to be a ticket to a full ride to college, but now even like the college opportunity and the college proposition is coming under question with like how fast the world is changing. And so I don't know what the end goal is. It's hard for me to prioritize sports for my kids above travel. So I feel
Right. It is a trade-off for sure. I try to walk the line myself, and I
yeah,
agree with you. I believe in the sports thing. Because my kids are 20 years top to bottom, I've
yeah,
seen such a change.
in
I've
the
seen the
evolution.
change, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
believe me, we're in it. I have a hockey player and a baseball player, so we're traveling all the time. But yeah,
It's fun, and there's so many great lessons to be
awesome.
learned by sports. So, that's what we try to focus on, but not try to have this grand expectation that it's going to necessarily take us anywhere, or
No,
when it
agreed.
stops serving you. Like, my older daughter recently, after devoting, many years and her whole sort of mindset to gymnastics, she quit, and this whole world opened to her. And she had dealt with a broken ankle, dealt with a broken wrist, driving back and forth to Yarmouth from Brewster. I was like, okay, yeah, it's time. And this is not a sport that is ever going to get you a college scholarship, but we're also tall people. So it's not, we don't really, we're not really like naturally, built for gymnastics, but there was a lot of wonderful lessons that we learned along the way. And it's an amazing foundational sport so she's trying new things. She just joined the Captain's PGA Golf League.
I
Had
love
a ball
that.
with that, best coach ever. Shout out to John. Um, and yeah, the whole world has opened for other things. So
And
it's
the
exciting.
Cape is so neat because you can do sailing. My son's doing like Pleasant Bay
Mhm.
community sailing, and he loves that and
Yep.
getting on the water. And it is nice. I like summertime for kind of, he plays tennis in the summer. He doesn't play the rest of the time because he is committed to his other sports. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
nice that we have good opportunities, especially in the summer for the kids.
Totally. Totally. And speaking of tennis, I love tennis. I'm a huge fan. I started playing about 4 or 5 years ago, but I'm like also obsessed with watching it. So my whole past weekend was spent watching the Wimbledon finals. But the Mid Cape Athletic Club that we have in Yarmouth
Is that
is,
where you play?
yes, they
Yes.
are. I mean, talk about a family business. Be a good conversation for you to have. Actually, they're not in Chatham, but they're year-round family-run business that just actually passed from Bob, who was the founder, down to his daughter Jen, who's now going to be running it, or is running it now. And it's just year-round. It's such a hub for like sports, conversations, communities. They're running tournaments. Brandon Cutter runs all these, mixed
I
double,
love
like low
Brandon. Mhm.
stakes. Yeah, low stakes, just super fun, enjoyable community tennis events. So
And
if your
I
son
love
ever,
that tennis is catching on a little bit more for people now in the last couple of years. And it is such a nice year-round thing to do because they have indoor tennis,
exactly.
which
Yeah.
is terrific. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they have 9 courts there, right? Nine, three, three, six, seven, 8 courts there. Yeah.
Plus the
Eight
outdoor ones,
courts.
plus a
Yeah.
couple of outdoors. Don't,
Not
yes.
at the club. They're all indoor at this point because there's so many outdoor courts everywhere else. They
Oh,
used
because
they
yeah.
built three more. They enclosed three in the back that I think used to be maybe outdoor. But they're that whole back court is like really, air conditioned. It's really great for the summer.
Oh, yeah, they were outdoor because my son played tennis in high school at Nauset, and played there a couple times, but it was a while ago now, so they must have been closed
Yeah,
those.
they enclosed it. Yeah.
Oh, neat, neat, neat. So
Yeah.
then what you and your husband met, and how did you get this idea? Well, first of all, which came first? Deciding to move back to the Cape or opening a business, or did it come around the same time?
Yeah, actually, that's interesting. I haven't been asked that question before, but I feel like it was probably the two of them together. We were really into coffee when we were there because the San Francisco coffee scene was exploding. It was like, so Blue Bottle Coffee
Yes.
started in the East Bay, but then their first San Francisco location, I believe, was at the Ferry Building Farmers Market. So circling back to that. And then they had opened up a few locations, but at the point that we were getting really into it, there were some like veterans of Blue Bottle that spun off and started their own, right? That always kind of happens as there's sort of like an
Hmm.
incubator. And then there were several coffee roasters that were this concept of like, we're going to roast in front of people. We're going to be really transparent about where our coffee comes from, not just the country, but we're going to spotlight the community and the cooperative and the processing method, and really like with the farm to table food movement, trying to connect people more to coffee, which obviously doesn't grow and it's pretty invisible to most Americans how coffee gets into your cup, right? But that was the movement at the time, and we were really on board with it. We were trying naturally processed coffees from Guatemala, comparing that to a washed coffee from Sumatra, and just the flavor differences was kind of what we did for like dating. We would go to different coffee shops. We would go over to the East Bay. Blue Bottle always used to have these public cuppings that you could just show up at and learn and taste. So yeah, and
It was
then
like a wine tasting, sort of like you must have developed a coffee palate
yeah.
for what was. Could you like identify the beans or the source, or like did you get to that point?
So yes, I
Maybe
think like
now. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I guess if you were to put like three coffees in front of me and I were to taste them, I could take some guesses and I'd probably guess like correctly that this is an African versus this is a Central American or this is a Colombian. I don't know that I would nail the origin. What I've become really good at is the processing method, both in terms of the smell and of the flavor. So when you pick a coffee cherry, there's two main ways and then
Wait,
hybrid.
wait, wait. Go back. Coffee cherry. Explain
Yeah.
what that even
Okay,
is.
so coffee grows on trees.
Yeah, right. I
Coffee
know.
is a fruit.
Okay, I got that. And so you
Yeah.
call it cherry, like where the bud is?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the coffee cherries are literally like cherries that you would pick off a tree, and what we use as the coffee beans are the seeds that
Okay.
are inside the cherry.
Got it.
So you pick the fruit, you've got to get the seed outside of the fruit so you can roast it. And there's two main ways you can do that. In Central and South America, which is more water plenty, they have this wash method. They throw them in these vats of water
Mhm.
and they let them ferment to a certain point. They measure the fermentation levels and then they put them through a depulper. So the water kind of helps loosens the fruit from the seed, and then it's depulped. And that will yield that will yield a certain the fermentation and wash process yields a certain flavor to that bean. You can also take that bean and do what they do in a lot of African countries where they don't have a lot of water, and they lay them on these raised beds and basically sun dry the fruit onto the seed, and then they'll put them through a depulper. And again, there's like hybrids, there's different things that people are doing. They're throwing like fruit into the fermentation tanks now and seeing how that affects. So there's different hybrids now and experimental methods, but those are the two historically main ways that you would get that coffee cherry off of the seed, and they yield really different flavors. So I've gotten really good at being able to smell a coffee and be like, that's a natural, that's a washed, and taste wise too. A lot of times the washed coffees are a little bit more acidic.
Mhm.
Whereas the dried coffee, the natural processed coffee is a lot more fruit forward. Like you really taste the fruit has dried onto that seed, and it's got this very distinct, bold, like cherry, strawberry, like red fruit flavor to it.
So is it like, all right, I'm a New Yorker, so I'm gonna say like the thing is always the New York bagels are the best because of their water versus
Uh-huh.
bagels from other places. So is it like the different types of water, the different climates that that you wash the seeds in and off of the cherry from? Does that have an effect on the taste, or is
I'm
it more
sure
the
it does. I mean,
process?
yeah,
Yeah.
everything does. I would say though it's less about like the quality of the water, and sometimes actually like if a farm is growing, let's say like you have a coffee farm that's also growing like bananas or mangoes, sometimes it's actually at the soil level that you're tasting different flavors in the bean. The altitude makes a huge difference, and like the
That's
amount of rainfall. I actually haven't really heard about the quality of the water in the wash
I
process.
don't know. I just know that's what
Water
they
in the
said in New York.
process for sure. Yes. And that's undeniable. If you take like nice filtered water and then you take tap water and you brew coffee, you're going to taste a difference. But yeah, I guess it all comes back to water eventually, right? Water's like
Right.
the source of life.
That's
So yeah,
right.
yeah, certainly rainfall is a big one.
And altitude, I think that's interesting that altitude would affect.
Altitude and like volcanic sediments in the soil, like so a soil from Sumatra and a soil from like the highlands of Ethiopia they're going to be totally different. Then you get Colombia, like this the soil factor, how close you are to volcanoes, sandy soil. Brazil, they're not known for high altitude coffee, but they have some like really interesting soil features. So um yeah,
That's
that's
really
like the
cool.
fascinating thing about coffee is it's like very much agricultural, which I can't keep a plant alive to save my life, but there's that aspect of it, and then there's the trade aspect of it, the processing aspect of it, how it gets from source country, to continental New Jersey or California or
Yep.
Houston at the port. They come, the transportation aspect of it, how long it sits, what's the moisture content, is it being stored in a cool, dry place? Like, is there opportunity for fungus to grow? Like, there's so many things that have to go right to get good coffee into
And then
this
you
country.
roast it. Then you go into the next level, right? Once you get the beans out, then you roast them. And then, so do you get the beans here and then you do your own roasting, or do you get them pre-roast? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so all of our roasting is now done in Sandwich. When we opened, we've always roasted all of our own coffee. We opened in Brewster and had like a little 5 kilo roaster, which was perfect for the time. Didn't stand up to our growth trajectory, but
It was a good thing.
yeah, it was a good thing. It was really fun. And that was our goal, was to get people more curious about coffee and asking deeper questions about it. And the best way to do that is to roast right in front of them. And so that was what we did in Brewster when we opened in 2015 in that little Brewster spot. We just had the roaster going so people could see it, smell it. Now we do all of our roaster in a 35 kilo roaster in our Sandwich facility. You can still see it. It's enclosed because it's loud, but it's glass doors, so you can see the roaster roasting Monday through Friday. And then, like, yeah, so every time we get a sample of a bean, before we decide we're going to bring it in, we put it through a sample roaster, which is this like, desktop small little batch roaster. We'll test out the coffee to see if it's the quality we want, if it's the flavor notes we're looking for. We decide we're going to get it. We contract it from the importer. Sometimes it's still in the source country, and that's called pre-booking. If we're in an emergency and we need a bunch of coffee, we buy spot coffee that's out sitting at a warehouse. One of our importers has, brought it in already. We buy it off of them. Then our roaster and our roasting team figures out the roast profile that they want it to match. And so at this point, because we've been doing this now for 11 years, we have kind of like we'll have a foundational roast profile for a coffee from Nicaragua. So we'll have a starting point, but then we'll say, you know what, I think this coffee could be a lot more fruitier if we adjust the temperature here or adjust the pressure here. And that's the job of our roasting team. And our Alex Mays is our green coffee buyer and he heads the production team. So he's making those decisions so that we can kind of finalize that roast profile for that bean and bring it to the public. But yeah, it's part science and a lot of art.
It's so interesting, and what a process. And you've probably had such an education over the since 2015 when you started. I mean, that's all, wow, you guys have done a great job. When you started, what did you envision? Did you envision just like the Brewster location and we'll just see how this goes? Or did you have a long-term plan?
Yeah, totally. No, it was, let's just see how this goes.
Let's go through tomorrow.
How this goes.
Everybody comes.
I mean, we had people that were like, and we also have a wholesale business and we sell online and we have a coffee club. So we did kind of initially spreads a wide cast a wide net, as they say, to see kind of what was going to catch on. The fun part is certainly the in-person retail running of the cafe, getting people excited, getting to hear people's feedback, like watching those first couple people like sip a pour over that we had, hand prepared for them and seeing their reaction. But yeah, it was definitely a gamble because there were coffee roasters here, right? We've always Beanstalk has been
Yes.
around forever,
Yes.
and he's great. John's awesome.
John's awesome. Yes.
Yeah. And Cape Cod coffee roasters had been around, but we were trying to, go a little bit deeper. So we weren't sure how the market was going to respond initially. And then once it responded really favorably, the 2018 was the year that we had the opportunity to open that Chatham espresso bar. So we weren't really planning that, but it fell into our laps. The owners came into our Brewster location and said, "Hey, Cottage Street Bakery is not going to open there in the summer. Do you want the space?" That they did that over like right before Memorial Day weekend. Manuel and I were actually in California with our family at a friend's wedding, and we got a call from the manager like
Memorial Day weekend
Memorial Day weekend of
for
2018
that summer.
So we got home, we looked at the space. Fleur and Hugh Jones, Hugh has since passed, but they were really generous. They were like, we'll give you X amount of money to build it out to your specs. We're like, oh my God, okay. I have my uncle's brother, so my mom's sister's husband's brother, is a contractor. He was available. We're like, oh, okay, let's do this. So we turned it around and we got open by July 4th.
Wow. I mean, that is.
Was bored. And honestly, though, like it's really within the past couple years, the leadership team there, and I think that sort of 5-year rule that we've turned it into what it is today, which is bustling. But
I was there this morning at 7:45, and there was it was like, well, a lot of what's nice is there's a lot of moms and babies with strollers, like that group of people that are up really early in the morning that like need the coffee the most.
They've lived their full day by 7 a.m.
That's right. And they were very happy, and little kids toddling around in the area. And it's a neat, if anybody doesn't know where that you're located, you're tucked in the back, but it's such a beautiful little courtyard entrance to get there. It's kind of in between the Mayflower and the Squire on that same side of the street. There's a sign. It's right next to a playa, which is neat, and in the back. And it's just like a kiosk, just to have just enough and just what you need to start the day. So I'm not surprised that's been successful.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's such a special little spot back there. And I think the shade, there's some nice seating. And Fleur Jones, who owns it, she's in her 80s now. She's older, but they always envisioned that as being kind of like the little French inspired courtyard. So I feel like they've kept true to it, kept it very simple, but yeah, it's a nice little spot back there. And
it's lovely.
Yeah. Thank you. We love it. I mean, it's interesting though, because that spot, like it's taken us a while to figure out the formula because, Chatham is very seasonal, and so are all Lower Cape towns, but Main Street in particular is very seasonal. So you have to be ready for when people are there, and then you have to be ready to scale right back down when people are not there. Otherwise, we tried early on to stay open year round, and that didn't work. It wasn't gonna be financially viable. It'd be interesting, to see what it would take. So what we do now is we commit to staying open until first night. So New Year's, but we have to trim down. We have to scale down. We can't necessarily staff it 7 days a week because it doesn't sustain itself as the fall goes on. And especially when like by mid-October, things are really slowing down. But we try to stay open as many days as we can justify it. And then we'll take a couple months off and then get ready in April to open right back up. So it's finally now kind of has its own little formula that's different from other locations, but I think we've figured it out, and it's just so much fun to run. We love, like, the daily customers in Chatham are awesome.
It's so really fun. And the good thing about going to get a cup of coffee there in October is there's great parking.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. You can just zip it in.
July.
No, it's a lot harder in July. That's why the moms with the strollers and the dads with the strollers going downtown, they're doing their loop anyway. They're out and about, and as walkers in Chatham, you're on the loop. So everybody wants to do one of the loops for walking in the morning, and it's a nice rest stop. So you've just made some changes in some of your other locations. You moved out of your Brewster original location. So tell us about the new spot and what's going on there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a big 2025 and start to 2026. So we were outgrowing that Brewster location. We had been there. That was our original location. We loved it so much, but there was some transitions, and now we were running off of 2 to 3 year leases with our previous landlord, and that made it really difficult for us to ever like fix the roof, install this, because we didn't know what was going to happen, and he had all these visions and dreams, and nothing was really panning out. So we made the decision. It was a really hard decision, but we made the decision to leave. And we were looking at a TD Bank that had closed right on the corner of Underpass and 6A. We looked at the building. It was for sale. We weren't going to have the money to buy it and do the renovations. But another family in town bought it and came to us. They had already made the offer and said, like, we think you should move in. And we were like, we think we should too. This is great. So
Perfect.
yeah, it really worked out. And we wouldn't have been able to do it all ourselves. That's for sure. So we spent the year building it out, and now we're open. We opened on May 15th, and it's been great. I mean, we're a little bit more challenged with parking. The old property kind of was sitting on, I think it was 15 acres, and you could kind of just park wherever on the property and all was good. That's not the case here. There's a lot more defined parking. It's a very busy corner. So, understandably, the town of Brewster wants things to flow.
Yes.
But like we asked our neighbor across the street, Chillingsworth, could you help us with overflow parking? Yeah, sure. No problem. He opened up his lot to our customers in the morning. So, good story of communities lending their hand and solving problems. Eat Cake for breakfast. We're right next to them. That's an awesome bakery. We're very excited to start planning some cool collaborations with them. They do a lot of.
I love that. So fun.
They're doing gelato, making their own gelato, like really exquisite desserts. And so we're just excited to be kind of there, like another spot in Brewster. We've got some good neighbors. We've got some challenges, but we're working that out. And we have 2 registers, 2 espresso machines, so we can move that line a lot faster than before. We've got a functioning air conditioning. That's something we never had. We have a full basement.
That's such a win on the Cape, right? For year round, we just get used to kind of the way it's been and the way it is. Well, that's great. I love to hear that Chillingsworth is, cooperative. I love what I found too, after living here for quite some time and talking to a lot of business owners in depth like this, is the collaboration between the businesses is so neat. Like you were saying, you bounce back and forth, and we were talking before about some coffee shops and where you like to go. And there's just doesn't feel like any animosity, but everybody's kind of rooting for each other to do well. And how's your season going? And I used to have an office downtown. So people would pop in. Who are you seeing? What kind of shopping bags are going through Main Street? What's the energy this summer? Yeah. And it's fun.
Yeah, no, totally. And, I was going to say this about Chatham too. I mean, Chatham, Chatham has such an amazing the Chatham Merchants Association, the art in the park, the Christmas stroll, like the Halloween Oktoberfest. It's a seasonal town, but I think that what the business organizations do in the business community in Chatham is something that's really special. Keeping the year going by these really awesome events, bringing businesses together, allowing us giving us the space and time to have these conversations through these different events and different opportunities to grow business, even in the slow season. But yeah, I think in general, there's so much grit required to run a business on the Cape that like you see another business owner, even if like by objective measures, they're your competitor, that they've got something they've got what it takes, and maybe they can share some insights with you. I mean, I feel like in the coffee community, specifically around the country, is known for being very supportive, but you see a lot of that same level of support here on the Cape, and just openness, right? Like openness to sharing ideas. Hey, I see you have this problem. We tried this and it worked. Maybe you could try this. Or I don't know. I feel like I could call the owners of the Chocolate Sparrow if I had something that I felt like they could answer, and they would give me the answer, and so, yeah, there's very much Cape wide, like we're all rooting for each other, because it's true. Rising tides lift all boats. It's so cliche maybe to say, but I feel like there's no other way to express it better. We all believe that if we can all do our best, get a good season in, but then also do our best to work together to attract people in the off season, to get more bodies here, so that because we can't do it alone. No one's going to drive to the Cape for like a cup of coffee. They need to have a good reason to come spend a weekend on the Cape. So it's a collaboration, and it's an energy that, there's a lot of like-minded people, I think, that believe that to be true. So.
And everyone's in the trenches too in the summer, in a good way. We live for the summer on Cape Cod, and even all of the negative things about a lot of people being here, I just always find the energy to be so fun, and
Yes.
people looking forward to. And as you said, the fall events and the Christmas stroll is such a fun night in town, and everybody really looks forward to it. And then, of course, the quiet season. So
Yeah.
when I ask you this next question, which is, what is your favorite little hideout, your go-to spot in Chatham when you have a moment and you want to kind of escape the crowds or whatnot? What do you like to do?
Yeah, so we were talking before. I really don't want this to sound like it's like my easy out or low hanging fruit, but I just love a playa behind Snowy Owl in that same courtyard area. I feel like you can step there and feel like you're in some exotic Caribbean or Filipino beach destination. You're sort of transported outside of Cape Cod for a minute. I love how simple it is. I love their decor. I love their drinks and their food. Again, like it's like an instant escape. Yeah, I think they just do such a good job, Tom and Pelinda and the whole crew over there. They certainly like keep us in business. Their team's always supporting us and always first in line. But
They're
beyond that,
getting prepped this morning too. I saw somebody
yeah,
there when I was
they
walking
open for
by.
lunch. Yeah,
But
yeah,
it
it's
was
not.
7:45. I mean, they were getting started. I love Tom and Belinda too. As I told you, they're coming up next week on the podcast. So that'll be fun. And I agree with you though. I think there is something special about your courtyard though, because it feels as though you just tripped into like the secret garden, right? Going
Yeah,
off a bustling main street, and then you walk through and you're kind of like, where am I?
yeah.
And it's got such a magical feel to it, both for getting you feel like you're the only one that found this spot. And a playa has the same kind of feel. So I love that you
Totally.
go
You're like,
hang
where
out
am
and
I?
hide out there from next door. I don't think that's low hanging fruit at all. I think it's a win.
Yeah, no, certainly. Like they moved in a couple, I guess. I mean, if I were to guess, I would guess that this is their fourth summer. Maybe it's their fifth. But instant vibe shift. And I think like instant boost in our business too, just putting it a little more on the map. The previous owner is a great guy. Oh, he's the owner of the Blue Coral, but he had some restaurants in Harwichport, like also booming, awesome restaurants in Harwichport, actually. And that was where his focus was. So it really worked out for everyone when Belinda and Tom were able to get that spot and turn it into what it is.
Like a
So
magical rainforest.
magical
So
landscape,
cool.
with the shade. It's also like really well shaded. So on those hot days, you can always find a little shade back there. And it's just that feel good, easy, like beach vibes. I love it. And
Good
I love the food.
choice.
Food is
The
outstanding.
food is outstanding. It's
Yeah.
very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good choice. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me and telling me. I learned a ton about coffee roasting. So thank you for that, especially since the name of this is Chatham Coffee Tour. I think I could be a little more well versed in it. And I
Well, no, I mean,
appreciate
a lot we try to meet people where their interest is at. And I think that's like, it's important because you can go, like just anything, you can go really deep and that's not where everyone wants to go. So I thank you for asking those questions because I do enjoy talking about coffee. I think it's fascinating. That's why we've chosen it as a career. So
I thank you guys. You're doing such a good job, and I really appreciate it. I'm glad you're keeping your Chatham kiosk, and it's really fun to go down there and get a cup of coffee. So I hope
thank you.
everybody out there can really go have a cup, go walk in the magical courtyard. And thanks for coming on the show. Good luck with the rest of the
Thank you,
summer.
Barbara.
I hope you have a very busy summer and fall. And
Appreciate that.
yeah,
Yeah, and we'll see you in Chatham.
you'll see me there. Okay.
All right,
Thanks so
thanks,
much.
Barb. Bye.
Bye. For more local stories, favorite spots, and inspiring people who chose Chatham, follow and subscribe to Chatham Coffee Tour and stay connected. Whether you're already here or dreaming about life in Chatham, this is your place to belong.